Wandering through a vast desert during a sandstorm, a blond man wearing a medieval garb and armor sees a castle town in the distance. Swearing he will kill the king, he advances towards it. Somewhere else, three people are riding a strange wind-powered car through the same desert. They are Fujimaru, a black-haired young man dressed in modern clothes, young girl Mash wearing a modern fighting armor, and Leonardo da Vinci, who isn't the Da Vinci we know. Fujimaru takes a call on a holographic communicator, talking to a scientist called Romani who explains their situation. They are in the year 1273 AD in the Kingdom of Jerusalem, looking for the Holy Grail, which is an unimaginably powerful magic artifact that someone used to change history. Those three people are members of Chaldea, the organization for the preservation of human order, their goal being to investigate what happened in this land and restore it to normal. While Fujimaru is a human, Da Vinci is a servant, which is a spirit of a historical hero summoned by a master, her master being Fujimaru. Mash is a demi-servant, meaning she is a human fused with a heroic spirit, even though she doesn't know which spirit she is fused with. The scene changes to a poor town populated by beggars, where the blonde-haired man we saw in the beginning, introducing himself as Lucius, meets a dark-skinned man called Arash. Arash tells him this town used to be the land of Canaan. Half a year ago, the Crusaders, using the power of the Holy Grail, created a magic desert which spread over Canaan, burying it. Sometime after, the Crusaders were annihilated by the Lion King and his Knights of the Round Table, who used the Grail to destroy the city of Jerusalem and build the Holy City in its place. Interrupting their conversation, Da Vinci appears, noticing both of them are servants and asking them how to get to the Holy City. Arash tells her there's a holy selection happening that night, where people can become citizens of the prosperous city if they pass it. He adds that, since no one has ever returned from the Holy City, nobody knows what is actually there. When night falls, Fujimaru, Mash, and Da Vinci enter the Holy City with a large number of refugees from Canaan, including Lucius. As they find themselves in a large stone room with braziers, one of the Knights of the Round Table, Gawain, welcomes them. The Lion King shows himself, wearing a cape and a lion helmet covering his face, and greets the crowd, pointing out three people, who she assessed as pure, uncorrupted souls. As the king leaves, suddenly, hundreds of arrows rain from the sky, falling upon all the people who weren't chosen and killing the majority of them. Among the chosen ones is a child called Rushed, whose mother wasn't chosen and, refusing to leave her child, she gets killed in a struggle with the knight. As the knight prepares to take Rushed away, Mash appears and attacks him with a large cross-shaped shield, while Fujimaru takes the child with him. Mash defeats the knight, but Gawain sees her and tells her she can't leave the Holy City alive. Drawing his sword, he clashes with Mash's shield forcefully. She activates her shield, which is a noble phantasm, one of the powerful armaments every servant possesses. Gawain, activating his sword, which is his own noble phantasm, envelops it in flames and sends out a flaming slash towards Mash, who protects her friends. Gawain closes the distance between them and prepares to cut them down. He explains how the Lion King chooses who is worthy and those who aren't are annihilated, claiming this is all for the sake of humanity's survival. Lucius appears and protects Mash and the others, blocking Gawain's sword, who recognizes him, calling him one of the Knights of the Round Table, Bediver. Fighting, Bediver gets his sword knocked out of his hands, but blocks Gawain's attack with his right arm. As he blocks, the gauntlet on his arm flashes and Gawain falls onto the floor. With Gawain down, Bediver, Mash's group, and the surviving refugees storm the closed gate and escape outside. Sometime later, in a throne room, on a gigantic silver throne sits the Lion King, who we now see is a blonde woman. In front of her, the Knights of the Round Table are kneeling. Emotionless, she punishes Gawain for his failure, launching him into a wall with a bolt of energy, afterwards saying he has earned her mercy by surviving the blow. Bediver dreams of another universe where he was standing in a flaming field full of corpses, seeing King Arthur and another woman fight. Before he can get closer to them, the Knights of the Round Table stand in his way, telling him that the king doesn't understand her people's hearts and must be killed. Suddenly, the dying King Arthur is lying in Bediver's arms, asking him why he won't end her life, her face turning into the monster helmet the Lion King wears. Bediver wakes up, riding in the wind-powered car with Fujimaru, Da Vinci, Mash, and 5 surviving refugees, including Rushed, having successfully escaped from the holy city. Da Vinci tells Fujimaru Bedivere was once one of the Knights of the Round Table and King Arthur's final companion who witnessed her death in the primary universe. Bedivere explains how he was a servant summoned to this world separately from the other knights, so he doesn't know why the Round Table is currently acting so strangely. He only knows he has to stop the Lion King. At that moment, they hear horses in the distance, recognizing Sir Lancelot and his cavalry, who are riding towards them. Preparing to fight, Da Vinci makes a flying machine come out of the wind-powered car, which she rides in Lancelot's direction, sacrificing herself to enable the others' escape. Before she flies away, she tells Fujimaru to seek out the Sun King, a man who might currently possess the Holy Grail. In the flying machine, she dodges Sir Lancelot's flying sword thrust at first, but in the end one of the attacks hits her and her machine blows up in a giant explosion, taking Lancelot and his followers with her. Fujimaru and the others head towards where the Sun King is, continuing their journey through the desert. Setting up camp that night, Bedivere tells Fujimaru that King Arthur in his timeline was once leading her kingdom peacefully and prosperously. Now that she has somehow been corrupted and turned into the Lion King, he wants to know her true intentions and end her madness. Fujimaru says he wants to join him in his mission, and they shake hands. The next day, the group continues their journey through a sandstorm when a gigantic living sphinx stops them. Behind it, an Egyptian sorceress called Nitocris, together with an army of footmen. When Fujimaru explains their situation and asks for audience with the Sun King, Nitocris agrees to take them into their town. At the Sun God's town, a place full of palm trees, stone houses, and numerous wheat crops, one of the people there tells Fujimaru that this is the only remaining utopia in this world. Climbing up the huge pyramid, where the Sun King called Ozymandias resides, Fujimaru and the others meet him in a luxurious throne room, sitting on a golden throne. He claims he has already saved humanity, but Fujimaru disagrees, telling him that if they don't do something about the Lion King, his town will also be covered by the desert. Ozymandias, unconcerned, reveals the Holy Grail, which he has taken from the Crusaders, saying that even if the rest of the world is destroyed, his kingdom will remain indestructible. He says Fujimaru and the others don't have a choice other than to become his slaves, but Nitocris convinces him to give them time to consider and let them stay in town for a while. Returning to the pyramid the following day, Fujimaru says they won't be Ozymandias' slaves because they want to try stopping the Lion King. Ozymandias gets angry and orders them to leave the town immediately, but generously sends an Egyptian priestess called Castor to go with them, expecting Fujimaru to produce results and show his worth. Out of town, Fujimaru is unsure where to go next, but rushed reveals a pendant his mother gave him, which turns out to project a map when the sun shines on it. The map leads to a village his mother described as a village of people who refuse to serve neither the Lion King nor the Sun King, and they decide to visit it. For several days they travel, following the map, as the terrain changes from the desert to barren mountains. Finally, they reach a small village hidden deep in the mountains, where they are met with people dressed in black. The village chief, wearing a tattered black cloak and a skull mask on his face, tells them they're not welcome, recognizing Bedivere as a knight of the Round Table. Before a fight breaks out, Arash, who Bedivere met back in the refugee village, comes out behind the village chief and manages to convince him that the newcomers aren't enemies. The village chief, called Hassan of the Cursed Arm, believes him and allows them to stay at the village. While the others are fishing, Arash notices Bedivere's arm is his noble phantasm, but it is heavily wounded because he was using its power too much. Bedivere laments over letting Rushd's mother die and lacing the resolve for self-sacrifice, but Arash consoles him, telling him he should stop shouldering his burdens alone. That night, while everyone is sleeping, Arash approaches Hassan. Reporting to him that the Round Table is most probably planning something, he says Fujimaru and the others arriving here might be a fateful event. The next day, Hassan approaches Fujimaru and the others, saying he would like to join their fight against the Holy City, realizing that at this rate, the village will be wiped out by the Lion King's army. Suddenly, Arash arrives saying the West Village was attacked, and its guardian Hassan of Serenity is taken to the attacker's fort. When night falls, Fujimaru and the others sneak onto the fort, but they are spotted by Mordred of the Round Table, a woman in an ominous red-streaked armor with a horned helmet. Bedivere holds her off while the others advance. Mordred, who is revealed to have killed the primary universe's King Arthur, is clearly stronger than Bedivere, but Bedivere manages to hold his ground against her. Bedivere reveals his prosthetic arm is a magical prosthetic which he received from the king for trusting her until the very end. Inside the fort, Fujimaru and the others find Serenity, a timid girl wearing black clothes and a skull mask, captured in a dungeon. They free her and try escaping the fort, but several knights stand in their way. Mash fights them off with her shield, until suddenly, Agravain, one of the knights of the Round Table, stops the fighting and welcomes them into the fort, because Fujimaru is a master from Chaldea. When he says he considers the Lion King's actions just, the Egyptian priestess disagrees. Agravain, dissatisfied with her answer, turns the knights into black knights with a gesture of his hand, and they attack Fujimaru and the others once again. This time Castor fights them by plucking 5 strands of her hair and casting a spell to turn them into 5 duplicates of her. The 6 casters, each using a spear, quickly dispose of the knights. Back on the roof of the fort, Bevidir and Mordred fight on, her insulting him for not being able to save the king and him exclaiming he may not have saved her, but he would do anything for her. Both activate their noble phantasms at the same time. Their powers clash in an explosion, causing an earthquake and badly damaging the fort. Inside the fort, everyone stops fighting and escapes outside before the fort collapses, Bevidir joining them, while Mordred is nowhere to be seen. Out of danger, Serenity admits Agravain found out the location of the eastern village. At the eastern village, Arash is picking off invading knights from the distance with his bow and arrow until Lancelot, a purple-haired man wearing a large blue armor and carrying a huge sword, ambushes him. After fighting for a while, Arash, outmatched, gets badly cut and apparently killed. As Fujimaru and the others return to the village, seeing it in flames, Hassan is enraged. Whenever Fujimaru and Mash find Arash lying in a pool of blood with Tristan, a red-haired knight of the Round Table, and Beniver's former friend standing near him. Disappointed in Beniver, he attacks him with a harp-like weapon, which, when each string is played, fires red bolts of energy. Beniver blocks bolt after bolt, getting closer to him. Getting close enough, he activates his noble phantasm and wounds Tristan, but badly damages his arm too. While Beniver is on the floor in agony over his arm, Tristan continues firing his bolts, but Mash comes between them, protecting Beniver. While Mash and Beniver close the distance between them and Tristan, Beniver, now sufficiently close to Tristan, activates his arm once again and stabs Tristan, dealing the finishing blow. As Beniver collapses once again, a light shines from the heavens and a gigantic golden lance slowly emerges from the clouds. As Tristan is dying, he explains that Lance is the Lion King's holy lance of judgment. He tells Bevidir the Lion King's actions are necessary in order to preserve humanity and that there is no place for emotions when delivering judgment. As the lance slowly descends, threatening to crush them all, Beniver, sensing his death is near, tells the others to escape. Suddenly, Arash gets up, badly wounded and barely standing upright. Arash, sacrificing himself by firing a magic arrow which turns the holy lance to sand, uses up all his life energy and disappears completely. As Arash's sacrifice gives him new determination, Beniver exclaims that this time he will definitely kill his king. Hey, thank you for staying all the way till the end. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like. It takes only a second, but it means everything to us. Have a great day and see you in the next video.